Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan, E-Services Supervisor here at the Jacksonville Public Library. And this Excel video is going to be on one of my favorite subjects. It is cell reference. Now, the reason why this is one of my favorite subjects is because it is so important to learn. If you want to become an expert at Excel, which I recommend everybody watching this video become, then you need to understand cell reference. Now, I'm going to be going over towards the end of the video a couple rather long and complex functions, but even though they are important to learn, and I do recommend that you do learn them, the main point of this video is not about the functions, it is about cell reference. That's what everything has in common in this video. So what is cell reference? Well, there are two different kinds. There's relative and absolute cell reference. And we're going to start with relative cell reference. Now, when you write a formula out in Excel, let's just take this for instance. I mean, we have a very simple data set here. We have revenue, expenses, and we are going to calculate net income. Well, very simple, just equals revenue, cell A2 minus expenses, cell B2. And you have, once I hit enter, you will have the answer. Now, it is not practical to write in these formulas in all these cells, and this is just a tiny data set compared to thousands and thousands of rows. I mean, you have to find a better way. Well, you simply just click and drag these formulas down. But you have to understand how that works. So, relative cell reference is, well, right here you have a formula. So relative to where this formula is, it's referencing cell A2 and it's referencing cell B2. Now, the first thing you do need to understand about cell reference is even though you see A2 minus B2 here, and you also see it up here, believe it or not, you shouldn't think of this as cell A2 minus B2 because that is not how Excel interprets this data. Excel interprets this as two cells to my left minus one cell to my left. So and I'm going to prove that to you. When I drag this formula down, it's not going to remain A2 minus B2. It's always going to remain 2 to my left minus 1 to my left relative to where I drag the formula. So let me prove it to you here. All right, I'm going to drag this formula down, double click. There you have it. One cell or two cells to my left minus one cell to my left relative to where I drag the formula. When I drag it to the right, double click, same thing. Always going to remain, the cell reference is always going to be 2 to the left minus 1 to the left. When I drag it up, same thing, double click. So relative to where I drag the formula, the reference is always going to be 2 to my left minus 1 to my left. All right, let me get rid of this real quick. I'm gonna highlight this, go to clear all. All right, so in this particular data set, this is exactly what I want because I'm going to write a formula in here, and when I drag it down, I always want it to remain 2 to my left minus 1 to my left. So it's very simple in this one. Equals A2 minus 1 cell to my left. And now I'm gonna, if I hit enter, it'll go to the next cell and give me my answer. And I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna double click the fill handle, and it's going to fill in all the rest of the formulas. And there we have it. It remains 1 or 2 to my left minus 1 to my left. But there are times when you don't want that. You want to lock a cell in place. You want to keep it there. And that is absolute cell reference. So let's start with absolute vertical. All right, let's look at this data set. So you have sales rep, you have sales numbers, and you are to calculate commission earned right here at a 2.5% commission rate. Well, simple enough. Equals 1 cell to my left times 1, 2, 3 cells above. And I'm going to hit enter, and there's my answer, $117.18, and that is the correct answer. But as we learned in the relative cell reference sheet, when I drag this down, what's it going to do? Well, it's relative to where I drag the formula. It's going to stay 1 cell to my left, which is what I want, but it's going to go 1, 2, 3 cells above me, and that's a blank cell. Let's see what happens. Drag it down, and there we have it. It stays 1 to my left, 3 above. So what I need to do is I need to lock it on cell C1 so it always remains at cell C1. And you do that with the dollar sign, and let me show you. So I'm gonna hit equals, one cell to my left. Now I always want that when I drag this down, I always want it to be one cell to my left. So I'm gonna keep that, and I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, and I want it to stay on cell C1, and you do that by the dollar sign. Now you don't actually type in a dollar sign. You use the keyboard shortcut of F4. Now if you notice, it actually puts in $2 signs, one before the letter, one before the number. So why the two? Well, one locks it vertically, one locks it horizontally. So the dollar sign before the letter locks it when I go left and right. Dollar sign before the number locks it vertically when I go up and down. So in this particular case, I'm going to drag it down. So I just need to lock it vertically. So I'm going to hit the F4 key again. The F4 key is actually a toggle. The more you hit it, it just keeps toggling the dollar sign in different places. So I'm going to hit it once, twice, and it's going to be locked vertically. So I put a dollar sign in front of the number. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to drag this down. I'm going to double click the last one. So it still remained one cell to my left, which is perfect. And it locked it on cell C1 the whole way through. That's an absolute cell reference. And since I only put a dollar sign in front of the number, what do you think will happen when I drag this to the right, when I drag this over here? Well, C1 isn't going to remain locked. It's going to go to cell D1. So let me drag this over. I'm gonna double click, and there you have it. It's cells, so it dragged it over one. So that is absolute vertical. So now we're going to go over absolute horizontal. All right, let's look at this data set. Pretty simple. You have revenue of $10,000, and what I want to do is I want to find out what a 3% increase each month will be. So I have to multiply the 10,000 times the 1.03. The 0.03 represents 3%. The one before the decimal point just keeps the original amount. All right, so I'm going to hit the equal sign, one cell to my left, times 1, 2 down, and 1 over. All right, so we know that when I drag this formula over, it is going to advance. It is going to go to cell C4, D4, and we don't want that. We need that locked on cell B4. We need this B2 to keep going to C2, D2, E2. So we don't need a dollar sign on the first one. We just need to lock cell B4 into place. So I'm going to do that with that dollar sign there in front of the letter. All right, so I'm going to drag this over, double click. There you have it. So it always remained one cell to my left, which is what I wanted, but then it locked it on cell B4. So that is absolute horizontal. And now this is where we put everything together. Now this is a great learning tool when you're learning cell reference. This is how I learned it. I just sat here and did a multiplication table till I completely understood cell reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a formula, just one formula right here. And if I do this right, I'll be able to drag it down and drag it all the way over, and it just fills everything in. So let's start with the equal sign here. So we know, since this is a multiplication table, that we need to multiply these row headers times these column headers. So I'm going to equals one cell to my left, and I need to put a dollar sign in front of the letter because I need to stop this from the one from moving over into this open area where there are no numbers. But I don't want to put a dollar sign in front of the number because I need it to advance to 2, 3, 4, and all the way to 12. So I'm just going to put a dollar sign in front of the letter. Then I'm going to put the multiplication sign in and one cell above me. So when I drag this down, do I want that one to be locked? Yes, because I do not want it to drag out in this open area. Now, when I drag this over to my right, do I want this to advance to 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12? Well, yes, I do. So I only need a $sign in front of the number. I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm going to drag this down and drag it all the way over. Isn't that cool? It just filled in all those formulas in just a matter of seconds. Now I'm even going to show you a cooler trick, one that's even saves you a step from that. So let's highlight where all the formulas are going to go. So all this green area here. And if you notice, there's one brightly lit cell. That is the active cell. Don't click on it because then you just ruin everything you selected. All right, so all I have to do with that brightly lit cell, I just have to hit the equal sign. One to my left, and I'm going to lock it going across times one above me. I'm going to lock that going down. Now, since I have all the cells selected, I just hold down the control key and tap the enter key, and it fills them all in. So we did all those formulas in just a couple seconds. Okay, so now we get to the part where, remember I warned you about some of these advanced functions in Excel? Well, this is definitely one of them. This is the SUMIFS function. So still the goal is to understand the $sign and the absolute and relative cell reference. But let me go over what a SUMIFS function is. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You are summing if it meets certain criteria. So we have a data set here, but the only things we are going to be interested in are the product, region, and the sales number. So we are going to calculate sales in all the products in all the regions. So I created a little table over here. Products are the row headers, region are the column headers. Now I'm just going to put in one SUMIFS function here, and it'll sum up the Kit Kat sales in the East region. And then if I do this right, I should be able to drag this all the way down and then drag it all the way over. Then it'll fill in everything else for me. So let me go through the SUMIFS formula. All right, so you start with an equal and just type in SUMIFS. And once it's highlighted in blue, you just hit the tab key. All right, so the first thing it's going to ask for is the sum range. Well, the sum, anytime it says range, it's asking for something of the range in this big table over here. So sales are what we are going to sum up, and it wants the range of all the sales in the column. So we just click on the very first one at the top, and we need to get the range by selecting the whole way down. Now you can just come up here and select and keep going, but that's kind of the long way. What I like to do is just hold select the top one at the column, hold the control and shift key, and then just tap the down arrow. As long as there are no blanks, it'll go all the way to the bottom. And a very quick way of getting to the top, I mean, you can grab the slide bar and do that, but sometimes these are thousands of rows long. So a very quick way is just to hit the F4 key, now, which is something we have to do anyway, to put the $signs in, because we need to lock this absolutely going vertical and horizontal, and just hitting the F4 key once does that. It puts all the $signs in. All right, so then you hit a comma for the next argument. Criteria range 1. Well, it has that word range, so we know we're going over here. Now the two criteria are the product and the region. So let's start with the range of the product. So same thing, click on the top one, hold the control shift, tap the down arrow. I'm going to hit the F4 key once to get it back up there and to put the $signs in there. Now, if you want to bring it back to the formula without putting $signs in there, control backspace will do the same thing without the $signs. All right, so I'm going to hit a comma to get to criteria 1. Now, it's not asking for a range, it's asking for criteria 1. Well, we know the two criteria are the product and the region. So I'm going to just click on Kit Kat here. And I know I'm going to be dragging this function down and over. So first of all, when I drag it down, do I want it to advance to Snickers gum soda? I do. When I drag it over, do I want it coming out here into this green area? I do not. So I need to lock that going horizontally. So I'm going to put the $sign in front of the J. a comma to get to the next argument. Criteria range 2. Well, the second criteria is the region. So I have to select the range. I'm going to come over to the top one of the column, hold Control Shift and tap the down arrow. Hit the F4 key to bring it back up and to put the dollar signs in, comma. Now, criteria 2, we already have criteria 1, which was the product. Now we got to click on the region. So I'm going to click on East. And I know, once again, I know I'm going to be dragging this formula down. Do I want it to come down here? I do not. I need to lock that vertically, but I want it to advance to Midwest, West, and South when I drag the formula to the right. So I'm just going to lock it vertically, so a dollar sign in front of the 5. Then I'll put in the end parentheses, and let's just see if that works. I'm going to drag this down. Looks good so far. Drag it over, and it filled them in automatically. And now I like to test things out just to make sure they work. So let's just say Kit Kat in the Midwest. So let me find Kit Kat in the Midwest. So right there. Actually, just change that a different color so it's noticeable. So I'm going to raise the sales number over here in the table. And if this works, this number here, Kit Kat in the Midwest, should raise with it. So I'm going to change it from $798 to 10,000. I'm going to hit enter, and there we have it. Jumped up to 13,135. So it works. That is the SUMIFS function with all the dollar signs. Now, it is a long and complex function, but if you follow along and it's, you know, if you're anything like me, you won't learn it right away, but just practice it and with all the dollar signs, and it'll start to click after a while. All right, so the last one I have is the future value of money function. So I'm not going to go into this function very deeply. It's still about the dollar sign. So same thing, I'm going to put a function here, and I'm going to drag it down and drag it all the way over. That's pretty much the focus of this video, is to fill in all these cells with formulas. Just write in one formula and then drag it down and drag it over. So let's just go into, just so you know the very basics of this formula. So you have a one-time payment, a yearly payment of amount. I just put in 5,000 here, and without going too deep into this future value formula, this does have to be a negative number because you are taking it out of an account. So I'm estimating the number of years I put in a yearly payment at a particular interest, what that 5,000 will be. So for instance, right here, where I'm going to put in the original formula, if I put in a yearly payment 4 times at a 5% interest rate, what will that be? Well, I know it's going to be above 20,000 because 5,000 times 4 is 20,000. So I have the original $5,000 payments 4 times at once per year. So that's 20,000. But then it'll put in that 5% interest rate. So down, if I like, for instance, this cell right here, cell D6, it'll be 6 payments, yearly payments at 9% interest rate. So I know it'll be above 30,000, whatever 9% is, above 30,000, that's what it'll be. So let's start here. And when you're first starting to learn formulas, oftentimes it is beneficial. Come up here to the formulas tab and then just search out the one you want. I already know it's future value. That's what I'm doing. But click on it and it'll go through step by step. You know, it'll give a definition of what these things mean, and it is rather helpful when you're starting off to use this. But once you get to know a formula, it's just better, it's faster to type it in, and that's what I like to do. So I already know this function pretty well, so I'm just going to hit equals FV for future value. And you can see the one I want is highlighted in blue, so I can just hit the tab key. And the first thing it's going to ask for is the rate. Well, that is the percentage. I'm going to click on that. Now, I'm going to be dragging this formula down and over. So when I drag it down, do I want it to leave this 5%? No, I want it locked there. So I'm going to definitely be putting a dollar sign in front of the number. When I drag this formula over, Do I want it to advance to 7%, 9%, 11%? Yes, I do. That's the whole point of this. I need to always stay on the column headers here, the row headers here. So I'm just going to put a $sign in front of the number, comma for the next argument. Number of payments per period, that's what MPER is. So that is the years. So I'm going to come over here, click here. And the same thing, I am going to drag it down and drag it over. So I need to lock this going horizontally, but not vertically, comma, payment. Well, that is the yearly payment. I'm going to come up here, click cell B1. Now I need to lock this absolutely because I don't want that to advance anywhere. I need it to stay right there in cell B1. So I need to hit the F4 key one time, which puts the $sign in front of the letter and in front of the number. So we don't need the PV and the type, the present value and the type. This formula will work just like this. I'm going to end parentheses and hit enter, and I have my first number. And so now if I did this correctly, I should be able to fill in all the blanks, and it looks good so far. So there you have it. So at 4 yearly payments, so we're just going to stick to cell B5. So I put in 4 yearly payments of $5,000. So you have your original $20,000, and at 5% interest, that would be $21,550.63. At 7% interest, so you're just calculating what it would be worth. And I have it set up here so you can go in increments, like down here. So I have this set up, and you can play with this too, with this particular sheet here. So if I want 3% jump in percentage, or let's just say 4%, it'll jump to 4. And I can start with, say, 3%. So you can just play with this for a while if you want. And I have it in years too, and I have increments of 2 years. So it goes 4 to 6 to 8, but I can, if I'm really in it for the long haul, of increments, let's just say a 4. So there you have it, all the way up to 36 years. So there you have it. There is the cell reference video. So we went over relative cell reference, absolute vertical cell reference, absolute horizontal, and the all-important multiplication table. Then we went over a very hairy function, SUMIFS, and let me click on that, and this is what we did with the SUMIFS. That is a long function. And we had the future value of money. All of these pertain to cell reference. So that is it for the video. If you need more help, please get a hold of eServices. You can book a one-on-one with us at any time. I would be happy to go through all these things step by step with you. Thank you.